Skills in Souls games have always been a big part of what made their combat great and engaging. These weapon arts return in Elden Ring as Ashes of War, a system that has way more flexibility and variety than ever before seen in a FromSoft game. In this video, we're going to give you a quick guide on everything and anything you need to know about Ashes of War. So let's start with the big question. What are Ashes of War? Ashes of War are skills that you can apply to your weapons and shields in Elden Ring. These skills are reminiscent of the weapon art system in past Souls games. Because they're effectively enchantments that can be applied to items, you can choose the skill you want by applying the respective Ash of War. This system adds a ton of flexibility to the way you craft your builds. You can acquire Ashes of War in a similar way you can get other items in Elden Ring. You can purchase most ashes from a vendor at War Master's Shack in exchange for runes. Some also drop from teardrop scarabs that are scattered across the world. There are also a few rare ashes that drop from bosses and specific enemies. While this system is incredibly flexible, there are some limitations. Some weapons, such as the Moonveil Katana and Rivers of Blood, have a unique skill already attached to them. These can't have a different Ash of War applied to them. On the flip side, these skills can't be added to other weapons. Another limitation to be mindful of is weapon type. Some Ashes of War can only be applied to specific weapon categories. For instance, you'll see that some melee-based Ashes of War state that they can't be applied to colossal weapons. Despite these limitations, this system gives you more freedom to experiment with your build than any other FromSoftware game. Now moving on to how to use Ashes of War. As mentioned earlier, Ashes of War appear like items in your inventory and can be applied to your weapons. To do this, you'll first need to acquire the Whetstone Knife item from a chest at Gatefront Ruins early in the game. Once you have it, you can rest at any site of grace and use the Ashes of War menu to apply skills to your gear. With this setup alone, it's a fairly straightforward process to add any Ash of War to a standard weapon. You can also use this process to add an ash with an affinity to a weapon that has the same one. Now, affinities are like elements. They add properties to your weapons and Ashes of War. For example, a weapon with a bleed or a bleed Ash of War will inflict the bleed effect onto an enemy when you strike them. If you want to add a skill with an affinity to a weapon that has a different one, then you'll need the corresponding Wet Blade. There are a total of 5 Wet Blades that will allow you to apply Ashes of War with even greater flexibility. Another great feature of Ashes of War is that you can duplicate them. This is perfect for dual-wielding builds that want to have the same skill applied to both weapons. It's also a great way to ensure you never lose the Ashes of War you really want to keep. To duplicate ashes, you'll need to use a rare resource called Lost Ashes of War. You'll then need to head to Round Table Hold and pay Hugh, the chained blacksmith, a visit. From his menu, you can select the option to duplicate the Ash of War of your choice. Now time for the big question. Can Ashes of War be reused in Elden Ring? And that's a resounding yes. You can reuse any Ash of War you've applied to your weapons. This is what makes the whole system incredibly flexible. What you need to do is remove the skill you've applied to a weapon, and that will turn it back into an Ash of War item in your inventory. To remove an ash, head to a site of grace and open the Ashes of War menu. Then simply go to your weapon and select Undo Enchantment. Now your Ash of War can be applied to another weapon of your choosing. And that's all the time we have in this video. If you want to learn more about Ashes of War, you can visit Fragment Shader and read the extended guide on Ashes of War on the site, and we'll see you in the next video.